Today is the spring breakout game for the Pittsburgh Pirates, so let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is, of course, Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter right there at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And folks, today is Thursday, March 14th, meaning that it is spring breakout game day for the Pittsburgh Pirates. We spoke about this on the show last week, but spring breakout, to me, one of the things that baseball should have done a very long time ago. And it means we get to watch the Pirates' top prospects face off against the Orioles' top prospects in the first installment of the spring breakout games around spring training. Again, we talked about the game last week, but since we have gotten some more news on who will be involved, some new additions after some scratches, of course, and more. Obviously, you got kind of a flu bug going on down there in Florida, so that's kind of put some of the guys out of the game, but still going to be a lot of fun talent on the field tonight for the spring breakout game. And for those who may have missed last week's show, the Pirates and Orioles, of course, along with all 28 other MLB teams, will showcase the top talent in their systems and their prospects, of course, over the course of 4 days, promoting baseball's potential stars in another minor league event on the baseball calendar, which I think is just a phenomenal idea. Getting eyes on these kids before they get to the major league level, I think, is one of the best things that baseball could have done this spring. It's just very nice to get looks at these guys and be able to say, hey, I know who this guy is that's coming up in the system. And there's a lot of players on the field today that some of you might not know. Some of the general fans of Major League Baseball might just not know. And I think that's really the big purpose of what this is for, is it's to showcase every team's minor league system and get eyes on these kids. So maybe you watch more Altoona Curve games or Indianapolis Indians games, or of course, any other games in Bradenton or Greensboro that may be available. I think that's going to spike viewership in minor league baseball. And I think that this is just a phenomenal idea. Now, of course, all the games will be broadcast on either national TV via MLB Network, like tonight's game for Pittsburgh. You can also find some of these games on MLB.com and local broadcast networks. So the Pirates' lone spring breakout game is today. I believe it's only the Cardinals and Reds that are playing in two of them because of the unevenness, of course, of the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League. And as for tonight's game, I mean, I think we all know what the big headline is going to be for this game. And it was announced that Paul Skeens, of course, will be the starting pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And it will obviously, the game that is, be headlined by the rematch between number 1 overall prospect Jackson Holliday and number 3 overall prospect Paul Skeens, who faced off earlier this spring. That game, of course, was not broadcast, but Jim Callis and a bunch of other people did get some good video of the matchup, and Skeens did win round 1 against Holliday, having a 1-2-3 inning against the O's in his spring debut, retiring Adley Rutschman and Tyler Nevin as well in that game. So very fun to get eyes again on Paul Skeens and Jackson Holliday, two of baseball's best that are going to be very good players very quickly. And both Skeens and Holliday have gotten more opportunities in spring outside of their matchup, and both have impressed. I mean, Jackson Holliday has looked really good for the Orioles. Paul Skeens has had a very good short stint in spring training with the Pittsburgh Pirates before being optioned back to minor league camp. But that's going to be the highlight on the national stage tonight between the Orioles and the Pirates in this game. Now, outside of those two, I mean, you're looking at 2 top 10 farm systems, folks. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles have ranked first since 2021 in MLB Pipeline's rankings in pretty much every ranking between the preseason and the midseason. And Pittsburgh has been fully involved in the top 10 in that span as well. I know a lot of people kind of freaked out that the Pirates dropped from number 2 to number 9 from last year, but you also have to consider that you had Leo Piguero, Nick Gonzalez, Andy Rodriguez, Henry Davis, Quinn Priester, Luis Ortiz, Roansy Contreras, a lot of different guys that graduated from the prospect list last year. So you did lose a big chunk of why you were the number 2 ranked system in the entire majors. But I would expect that number 9 for now is a good number for the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I do think they get higher in that ranking, especially with graduations from other systems and the potential of graduations in this system. But we'll see what happens in rankings. And rankings, I mean, they're rankings, but it's always fun to have a top 10 farm system, but it's not the be all end all on if your farm system is good or not. Now, when you look at the Orioles, I mean, as far as this game is concerned, especially, they have seen way more returns from their prospects than Pittsburgh has in that span. You see Baltimore last year, they were the best team in the American League during the regular season. And a lot of that was thanks to the plethora of young talent that they have in their team that they really built by themselves. I mean, you look at Adley Rutschman, you look at Jackson Holiday, you look at a lot of the other guys that are available over there, and they just have a massive slew of young talent. So I don't see them going anywhere away from contention anytime soon. And the Pirates, though, in that same light, do have plenty of top young talent that should be arriving between really this year and next year, with a potential third wave in 2026 that we'll talk about with some of these guys that could come up in that time. So they could see those returns sooner rather than later as well. I mean, you're looking at 2024 and the potential debuts that you could see. I mean, you're talking about Paul Skeens, you're talking about Jared Jones, Braxton Ashcraft, Hunter Stratton. You're looking at a lot of different guys that could come up this year and make a real impact on this team. And yeah, next year even, you're going to look at Termar Johnson, Anthony Solometo, Bubba Chandler, Sung Shae Shang, Jack Brannigan, maybe even Alani White Jr. You're looking at those guys as well. And as for news on the game today, Thomas Harrington and Anthony Solometo have both been scratched from the game for Pittsburgh. Kind of stinks a little bit just because that removes another top 100 prospect from the game for Pittsburgh and Anthony Solometo, who's apparently battling the flu bug. Jared Jones will also not be participating for pretty obvious reasons. He's still fully in the competition for one of the final rotation spots at the major league level. He's yet to be optioned and reassigned to minor league camp or the minors yet. So I think it's pretty clear that the Pirates want to get looks at him and make a final decision on what they decide to do as far as what Jared Jones will be doing to begin the season. The position players, from what I've seen, have remained unchanged. Obviously, you're going to have the likes of Termar Johnson, Chang, Brannigan, Lonnie White Jr., Garrett Forrester. You're going to have a lot of different guys there that are going to be available for you as well. So go check out the roster. It's everywhere. I mean, it's on MLB.com. The Pirates have talked about it. There's going to be a lot of fun players to watch. Now, what's very interesting for this game as well, there are some rules that will also be loosened for tonight's game, as well as some rules that MLB kind of wants to get a look at as potential rules down the line. The game, of course, can either be 7 or 9 innings from what I've heard. I believe it's more likely to be 7 than 9, but if both teams agree to go to 9 innings, then I believe it can go to 9 innings. But I think the likelihood is that it's going to be more likely 7. No extra innings will be involved at all, as custom in spring training. We don't ever see any extra innings in spring training. And what I find most interesting in this game, and that could make it an even more competitive game, is that you're going to get looks at the idea that you're going to get to see the strike zone challenge system be involved, with each team having 3 opportunities to challenge a ball strike call throughout the duration of the game. So you might get a little bit competitive in this game. And you might see Derek Shelton and the Orioles manager really, kind of go at it a little bit and make this really happen. And I think that's a really fun dynamic to add to this game as well, to make it a little bit more competitive. There's also no 3-batter minimum in this game. As you guys know, with pitching, now you have to face at least 3 batters or end the inning, meaning more pitchers should have an opportunity to throw in the game. And pitcher re-entry is also a possibility, meaning a pitcher can exit mid-inning and return to the next inning, which allows, of course, for lower pitch counts. And at the end of the day, again, the game is a showcase. That's what it is. That's what it's meant to be. That's what it's for. And for the Pirates, they are showcasing some fun stuff in their system entering 2024. For starters, this was per Jason Mackey in an article he did yesterday. The Pirates will have 17 different countries represented in their system entering 2024. That's just really awesome to hear. I mean, that's just really cool to hear. And also, Pittsburgh's minor league affiliates performed well last year. I mean, you look at a 529 winning percentage, which ranks sixth among all of baseball. And I think there's an expectation the affiliates will be good again with talent up and down the system, and that they really could be competitive in the minor leagues this year. And again, the top guys in this game are known. We know that. But it's interesting that we'll get to see guys like outfielder Shailen Polanco, shortstop Yorgani De Los Santos, and of course pitcher David Matoma, who are some top international signings that some Pirates fans truthfully just might not know a bunch about. And I think David Matoma is the really fun one. I hope we do get to see him pitch because he's arguably the best story of the bunch, seeing as he became the third Ugandan-born player signed in international signing history, which I think is absolutely awesome. So yeah, watch the household names, but also get to learn some of these guys deeper in the system who can make impacts in a few years that were also a part of some trades that you may not really know a lot about. And you get to watch all of it as the spring breakout game will be broadcast on MLB Network tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I think that's going to be just a phenomenal thing. I'll be watching it, of course, for sure. I think it's going to be just a phenomenal event overall for baseball and a phenomenal event for these prospects as well to showcase some of their talent. But we're going to move away from prospects for a minute and talk about why the Pittsburgh Pirates should kick the tires on the remaining starting pitching free agents that are available, and also why it could help the Pirates contend in the NL Central. But before we do that, we're going to talk about Amazon Fire TV. Folks, Fire TV Channels is your sports destination, and to learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV because Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live television. Whether it's opening day or opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV Channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, Major League Baseball, and lots more. Not to mention, you also get great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and more. So check out Fire TV Channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV Channels, you really should, because you should trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Today's episode is also brought to you by the wonderful people over at FanDuel, because say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the March Madness tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a number one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. And always remember that FanDuel is an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And welcome back, of course, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Networks. And folks, as you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendar for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time for the best MLB season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app. That's going to be very fun for you guys to see next week as I join the other NL Central hosts from Locked On Cubs, Locked On Reds, Locked On Brewers, and Locked On Cardinals, discussing everything about the NL Central heading into 2024. And something the Pirates could do that I've really wanted them to do for quite a while now is to kick the tires on some of these remaining free agent starting pitchers. And there's 2 weeks, folks, before opening day. Obviously, that excludes the Seoul Series. And some starting pitching, especially some high-end starting pitching, remains unsigned. And obviously, there's the names you know because they're the names we hear and see on Twitter all the time about why aren't they signed yet, are Blake Snell, who has a qualifying offer, and Jordan Montgomery. Now, it's very unlikely, which you're going to hear me say a lot here, but it's still my feelings on the matter. It's very unlikely that Pittsburgh goes after either of these guys. I mean, you look at Blake Snell, you would lose a draft pick by getting him, big whoop, but that's probably the biggest reason why they won't do it. And any team would lose a draft pick in acquiring Snell, but it's also expected that Blake Snell and really Jordan Montgomery would garner money that the Pirates have never paid to a free agent starter. Their market values right now sit at $23 million and $18 million respectively via Spotrac. Respected. I always mess those words up. But as for today's discussion, I mean, I really just have one question about all of this as it pertains to free agency and starting pitching being available, especially for a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Why not? I mean, yes, it's unlikely either of those guys signs a 1-year deal, but there's potential for a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first season. Why not do that with a guy like Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery? Give them $20 million for 1 year or 20 something like that, right? And to add further to that, adding Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery to the Pirates rotation would immediately improve their chances in the National League Central. You can't say it can't because it absolutely would. And it's a division that could very well be determined by each team's rotation and how those rotations perform. I mean, I spoke about it in the short series with Know Your Enemy. Really, when you look at the Pirates, Reds, Brewers, Cubs, and Cardinals, their biggest question mark is their rotation. Milwaukee traded Corbin Burns and has Freddie Peralta as their number one and no Brandon Woodruff this year. The Cardinals are dealing with injuries with Sonny Gray, and really, what are you getting from Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Miles Michaelis? For the Chicago Cubs, you have Justin Steele, but Jameson Taillon's dealing with injury. What do you get from guys like Kyle Hendricks and Shoto Imanaga? And then for the Reds, I mean, is Hunter Green going to stay healthy? Do some of those younger guys step up? And of course, for the Pirates, yeah, you have Mitch Keller, but are Martin Perez and Marco Gonzalez going to return to their 2022 form? And are Luis Ortiz, Rowanzi, or Quinn Priester going to take that next step? So why not go out and get a guy that you know is going to be good in your rotation and improve your rotation in a winnable division that ultimately, at the end of the day, could be swung by which rotation does better. And when you're specifically talking about Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, PNC Park is also a favorable ballpark to left-handed pitchers. So I wouldn't be all that worried about the too many left-handed pitchers in your rotation. Now, again, this is highly unlikely, seeing as I could see the Giants, both New York teams and the Mets and Yankees, and maybe even the Dodgers get involved in this duo. And the Pirates can't compete financially with those teams. But, folks, we're 2 weeks away from opening day. If their markets continue to dissipate, why not take a flyer and go after it? Why not? I mean, that's the biggest question that I have to ask. And you may even be wondering, Ethan, why only mention these two guys that are more than likely out of the Pirates price range? And you're 100% right. I'm not only going to mention those guys because there's more options outside of these guys as well, just sitting there. You look at Mike Clevenger, for instance, who's a unique option that's still available. Has a $13.6 million market value. Yeah, that's a lot in terms of Pirates talk. And although a step down from Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, he'd slot into this rotation immediately. He had a 3.77 ERA last year in 24 starts. He ranked highly in each of his run values with his pitches and walk rates. He has a career 3.45 ERA that offers consistency in his approach, and it'd be a no-brainer to add him to the rotation. Now you also look at a guy that you guys always ask me about, and I have had him on my target list all offseason. Michael Lorenzen is also still available. His market's grown a bit due to injuries around the league. And yes, I'm talking about Garrett Cole. But Lorenzen has been a target of mine all offseason for good reason. He was a solid option behind Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler last year. He posted a 4.18 ERA in 25 starts with a 1.21 whip. He's not a high strikeout guy, but in his 9 seasons, he's been very consistent. He has a 4.11 career ERA, a career 1.32 whip. Slot him into the rotation immediately. It just makes your rotation better. Let's even go deeper. Jake Odorizzi, another Rangers pitcher, which the Pirates have been fond of this offseason apparently. He's still available. He had a 4.44 ERA or a 4.40 ERA last year in 22 starts. He was with the Rangers. He's another vet who's had a consistent career, doesn't allow a lot of hard contact, likely be much cheaper than the other options. But I would say even at this current moment, I have more confidence in Jake Odorizzi than I do Ortiz, Groanzi, or Quinn Priester. And definitely Bailey Falter or Eric Lauer or Chase Anderson. And I mean, you even look at former Pirate Vince Velasquez. He's still available and had a good but short stint with Pittsburgh before his injury last season. Why not give him a minor league deal and bring him in? Give him an opportunity to play himself in there. You have other options that are available as well. And I've already mentioned their names, and you have very clear questions and concerns when it comes to Luis Ortiz, Contreras, and Priester. You have very clear concerns there. Do those guys take that next step? And I once again asked the front office and management, why not? Yeah, I know you have Paul Skeens in the wings. Yeah, I know you have Jared Jones in the wings. But as our pal Sully over at Locked On MLB would say, the games in April count as much as the games in September. They count all just the same. So why not go out and get a Blake Snell or a Jordan Montgomery or a Mike Clevenger or a Michael Lorenzen who could win you that extra 2 to 3, maybe even 4 games in April, like we saw last year with the Pirates. And that could very well be the difference in this NL Central. That's a very tight division. Now, it's highly unlikely we see another edition this close to opening day, but this is baseball we're talking about, and anything is possible. And if you get to the dance, like we've seen in the National League the last 2 years with the Phillies and the Diamondbacks, anything's possible. And the Pirates adding another viable, strong starter to their rotation would more than improve their chances. And the front office has said, we want to compete this year. Well, then do something about it. Yeah, I know you brought in Perez and Gonzalez, but it's clear this rotation still doesn't have 5 guys that you could fully trust in, let alone 2 or 3. And that's a problem because this division is winnable and it's there for the taking. So take it. Take it by the horns because no other team in the division has. So why not the Pirates? That's just a question I'll keep asking the front office is why not? That's my thoughts on that. I don't think they're going to add anybody else, but they should. There's no reason they shouldn't. Shoot for the stars. You haven't been to the playoffs in 9 years. Shoot for the stars, folks. It's a little bit ranty for me, but it's fine. And we're going to always end our show as we have over the last couple weeks with spring news and notes. But before we do that, folks, we're going to talk about Prize Picks. Another staple of, fantasy sports is Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 because Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Obviously, football may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. And also, if you think Caitlin Clark can score more than 30 points or LeBron James can have more than 7 assists, go do it, because I think they can. And download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB at PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100, because PrizePicks is where you can pick more, pick less. It's just that easy. And folks, welcome to the third and final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on March 14th, meaning something I've mentioned a couple times already, that we are 2 weeks away from Pirates opening day against the Marlins on March 28th. That week is going to be loaded. We're going to have, obviously, the prediction show, the 3-part prediction show, March 25th through March 27th. Likely going to have multiple episodes on March 28th. Obviously, a preview of opening day, and then, of course, a post-game show after the game is done. And that means spring is slowly coming to a close, and today really is probably going to be the funnest day of spring we'll see. It's a doubleheader day for Pittsburgh, with Pittsburgh, of course, facing the Orioles at 3:05 and then playing the Orioles again in the spring breakout game in game 2 around 7:05. The Pirates lineup today, of course, includes what I'd really consider 7 definite 26-man roster players, with Nick Gonzalez and Alika Williams making up the back end of that lineup as they continue to compete in the middle infield. You look at Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, and Key Brian Hayes at the top 3. Very intriguing to me. I want to see what they can do in the afternoon window. Jack Sawinski, Connor Joe, Rowdy Tellez, and Henry Davis make out the lineup. So I think it makes for a fun game to watch in game 1. We spoke at length at the top of the show about the spring breakout game, and it's been announced that Paul Skeens, of course, will begin the game against Orioles pitcher Cade Povich. So starting pitchers have been announced at the time of recording. We don't have a lineup card for Pittsburgh for game 2, but it's expected that prospects Termar Johnson, Sung-Chae Shang, Jack Brannigan, Lonnie White Jr., Garrett Forrester, a lot of those guys will probably be involved in the lineup somewhere. And as for yesterday's spring action, the Pirates lost to the Blue Jays 10-3, and sadly, the biggest takeaway from this one was the struggles of Roansy Contreras, who just did not have it at all yesterday. Surrendered 4 earned runs on the day, had 6 walks on 74 pitches. His command was just all over the place. He didn't look comfortable on the mound yesterday, and it was a clear concern. Things didn't work out too well for Carmen Mlodzinski either. He's surrendered 5 earned runs and 2 walks in less than an inning of work, so not a great day at the office at all for Pirates pitching. But as for the hitting side, O'Neal Cruz launched his 5th home run of spring yesterday, which leads all players in spring thus far at the time of recording. He's also done well this spring, getting on base at a .414 clip. He's walked 5 times, only struck out 6 times in his 24 at-bats. And his 5 homers in 24 at-bats is even more impressive when you consider that Miguel Andujar and David Bodie, who are each at 4, have 32 at-bats. As for other things that happened in yesterday's game, Shaylin Polanco and Alika Williams added RBIs on the day as well. Henry Davis also added a hit to continue his strong spring, while Garrett Forrester, Jake Lamb, Eddie Rodriguez, not ND, Eddie Rodriguez, and Gilberto Celestino, as well as Carter Benz, added hits on the day as well. The Pirates also still remain atop the home run ladder with 35 long balls this spring. Baltimore, of course, sitting at 29. And Pittsburgh also ranks 10th in walks. So I think the patience at the plate has paid off a bit for the Pirates this spring. It could be a sign heading into the year. Now, again, today should be and is all about the spring breakout game, and hopefully all of you will be watching. And tomorrow we have a mailbag show coming your way for Mailbag Friday. But until then, folks, It's time that I step away from you until tomorrow. Make sure, by the way, that you check out Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So find Locked On Sports Today now, available in the free Fire TV channels app and YouTube. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms because it is free and available to you every single day, Monday through Friday. Guys, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday afternoon. Enjoy the spring breakout game tonight. I'll see you for Mailbag Friday tomorrow, but until then, see yins on the flip side.